Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Sage Wolfe, and we are out here in Stuart, Florida, and today we are going to be going over the hip restoration. And so, everybody, see what she did right here? She instantly encased it. I don't want to see that the hip's locked up, because then it's kind of hiding stuff throughout that trochanter area. So I'm going to get her to extend that leg. I don't want it up and curled into a ball. So, we have three main sections when we're working the hip. So we're gonna pull down first, especially with what she's wearing. Normally I'm gonna want like some form of like underwear, or if they were just kind of like wearing like really movable shorts. This is nice and movable because it's super stretchy, so it's fine. But generally like it's fairly large, so if they were coming in for a treatment, just kind of get them to use something a little bit easier. So we have three main sections. I'm gonna be starting on her backside because this is gonna be me face to face with my right elbow. If I wanted to go face to feet, afterwards, I'm going to come over and I'm going to tuck myself in on her other side by her stomach. So, three main sections. We're going to go, see this ball right here where my hand kind of circulates over? That's going to be the trochanter. That's where the head of the femur comes into the socket. And so, you're never really going to be working on the head of the femur because it's encased by that trochanter. But we have so much scar tissue buildup around here that if you're working on somebody who's booked for hip surgery or has something severe in this area, I know personally that unless they've been in like a crazy car accident to where they've jammed and damaged their actual hips, that this is bone disintegration and displaced calcium going to the area because of a putrefied lower abdominal organ area. So now we're kind of pooping in our pelvis, that waste is seeping out, causing our bloodstream to become really kind of infected and toxic. And so what is the closest bone in this general area? It's going to be the pelvis and the hips. And the hips is a very large bone, and so we're going to start to take some of our calcium from our bones to displace it in my abdomen to buffer down some inflammation around the pelvis, but I'm actually losing bone density around the hip. So that's why hip replacements are the #1 joint replacement out there right now, because we all have kind of putrefied pelvises. So three main sections. We have the top section from the top of the ilium, because remember when we were doing low backs the other day and we were working through that iliac crest where we were comfortable? Now you're covering the whole side from that iliac crest, the top of the ilium, all the way down to the trochanter itself. And it kind of goes weird because the ilium's the top of the hip bone, then it goes greater trochanter, trochanter, lesser trochanter, but then that's kind of covered and protected by the gluteal process. So you're not really going to be working on the lesser trochanter area too much. And then, so this is my first section, top of the hip bone. And this is normally where I'll spend most of my time. So if somebody was complaining about hip issues, I'm not going to keep the treatment even and do 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. I might do like 30 minutes here, 20 minutes here, and just 10 minutes on that iliotibial band. But I really want you to feel that iliotibial band, and that's going to be that tight band you feel on the side of your legs. People think it's a muscle. It's actually the largest tendon in the human body. And it's built up of super small layers, and those layers, what goes first before muscle bellies? What will dehydrate first before muscle bellies? Tendons and ligaments, exactly. And so this is going to turn to beef jerky before her tissue starts to adipose, and then she loses like muscle tissue. So, first section, top of the ilium. And I want to work everything here. I'm not going to try to get into the low back. If she was complaining about low back issues and we wanted to do the origin and insertion, we're going to have her prone on the bolsters on the T-shape. We're going to touch on sacrum and SI joint, and then we would get her on her side for the hip if this was where she says she feels her pain. But if she says it comes down my leg to my knee, irritates my ankle and foot a bit, I'm going to go origin and insertion. So I touch on these two joints. So first section, top of the ilium. And it is a decent, like this is a decent gap, like a good amount of surface area that I have to cover. So once again, we can work side to side with my windshield wiper all the way down, covering the middle, medial, and lateral, or I can take it in strips and go back and forth. There's no right or wrong, so just work the way you do, as just like what makes you feel comfortable. So I'm going to do from the top of the ilium, work the middle, medial, lateral, playing my windshield wiper all the way down to the trochanter. When I get to the trochanter, I really want you to isolate, because I still see some people letting that guide hand drift off, and you're working over here and the guide hand's over here. But if my elbow's on the trochanter and I really want to focus, do you see how it just runs around? There's no control. So it's like I'm making almost like an OK sign, and I'm really just isolating with that guide hand so I can stay in sections. Because I'm going to want to focus on top of the trochanter where it's like hard to balance. I want to come around the front side of it, the back side of it, and I'm carving all the way around this large bone. After I feel like I've done that thoroughly, from face to face, pivoting face to side, because it's just a natural pivot as I work, because it's two positions, but you combine them. After I've done that, then I'm going to flip myself over. We're going to go face to feet, see, and like some people, it's totally fine just because you're new at this, but like they won't look at things to adjust things. Once you get them in the position, they think that's totally fine, and then they're like, oh, I can't really get in here. Just literally adjust the bolster. Slide it down a bit more so I can tuck right in.
Wow.
So it's just small things like that. Like people are like, oh, something's in my way. I'm not going to be comfortable. You just got to be like, no, if I'm not comfortable, something is wrong. Because there's always going to be a comfy position I can get in. So now I'm face to feet. So before I pulled everything down and out, now I'm pulling up and in. Exactly. And I'm going to be doing the exact same thing I just talked about, starting from the top of the ilium bone. I'm going to tell you, every single person, try to make a mental note of this. When you go to work on the ilium face to feet, and you're grinding into that ledge, you're going to feel, because we're always twisting, bending, moving, pulling, you're going to feel this is going to be a mass amount of crystallization and dehydrated torn tissue, to where I kind of call it like beef jerky grizzle. And you're going to feel it very crunchy along that ilium ledge, always. Doesn't mean it's the focus point. The focus is still my trochanter area, because that's where it's being encased. But you're going to feel a lot. So if you're still not sure what like crystallization or like dehydrated tissue feels like, know that the ilium will be a good representation of that. So I'm going to be working from the ilium down to that trochanter area, working the middle, medial, and lateral, pulling everything up and in. As I work my way down, I'm going to isolate that trochanter and work all around it. Do not do circles. We're pulling back towards ourselves with our strength. And you're going to see, as I start to actually do the non-surgical, you're going to see me using my body to pump. Because a lot of times, the hips can take quite a bit. They're on the outside of us. Everything on the lateral side is always going to be tougher. So you can actually do quite a bit of work. And then we always know once we head towards the medial side, we got to be mindful we never really get touched in here or in here. So it's a lot more hypersensitive. So after I've done the top portion, from face to side, face to feet, face to side, I'm going to finish off with that nice airplane landing effleurage massage, like usual, because that section is done. Then we're going to bring this up, bring that up, and so now we can see that like this was the trochanter that I just finished on. So I'm just going to come off the trochanter, this on the side, and it's about 1.5 inches wide. You can feel it on the side though. It's not like your hamstring and it's not like your quad. On the side, it's tighter and you feel like you're jumping over a band. That's going to be the iliotibial band. That's short for IT band. So what I do with that, because we always want to try to touch on origin and insertion. When we go to do low legs tomorrow, you're going to see that origin and insertion on the shin or anywhere that there's a bone is not really that important. Because touching on one end of the bone and the other, you're not going to make the bone longer. But it's the muscle bellies that we really want to focus on. It's where the tendons or the ligaments are attaching at. And so I'm going to really want to focus right on that origin, then come down to the insertion by the knee. And I want to be, like, I mindfully know that, like, her, like, muscle tissue and her ligaments are attaching from here to here. There's nothing, like, kind of growing out to the sides. This is just when we really need to use common sense. That if you go face to side, because I want you to play your angles, but if you go face to side and you feel like you're jumping over the tendon, don't. Change your angle so it's more face to feet and more face to face with 45-degree angles, pulling the striations apart. Nice, layering it. But if you feel like you flick a lot on that IT band, because it can get pretty tight, pivot, change your angle a bit. So, I'm going to start off with a nice airplane landing effleurage massage because it's a nice new area. I normally will knead the IT band out with my thumbs because you'll watch them already starting to react with this, and they're like, okay, that's kind of already the sensitivity level, so you really got to layer it. I'm going to touch on the origin. We're going to come down to the insertion. So I do like a minute or so. You're not spending longer than that. A minute, 30 seconds to a minute. And then you can just start working your way over top of the middle, the medial, and the lateral. Playing your windshield wiper is shaving off that iliotibial band all the way down and up. And you're just going to be stripping it back and forth with the amount of time you have. I'm going to do that from face to feet. Lift myself up, walk around, and then we're going to do it from face to face. And then once again, this is where I'll see people like move the client around. This is where people will reach over and they're like, oh, I just feel a little bit. I'm going to lift this bolster up and I'm going to put it right back here. And she's going to bring this leg on top of the bolster, right beside me now. So we're always doing something that makes us more comfortable. It's right beside me. So now it's just the exact same thing, but I don't have to reach over and lose my strength and work harder than I need to. And so then I already touched on origin and insertion. I don't need to go back over it. So then I'm just going to strip that iliotibial band, middle, medial, and lateral, opening that tendon up. After, yes.
What exactly do you do on the knee there?
I just want to work right down at the insertion. So I'm like right where I can actually feel the iliotibial band. She can feel me right on it, inserting at the knee. Oh, yeah. And I'm just coming down into the side of that. That's a little push. And then I just start stripping back and forth over top of that tendon bridge. So after I feel like I was thorough from both sides, we just finish off with a nice airplane landing, effleurage massage, a little bit of essential oils on the side because that is done now. We're going to get her into the last position, and this is the third position. We are going to go on top of the bolsters in a T shape, and she's going to be in supine position with her face up. Okay, so hip flexors, that is going to be, I want you to look for the hip bone itself. We're going to start, same thing, because it's a very small area, so I want more pinpoint and shaving. We have medial, which is inside. Middle is going to be on top. Lateral is going to be on the outside, and if you push on the outside of your body, you'll feel like this like kind of tight tissue over here. That's going to be called your TFL, your tensor fascia latae, and that really needs to kind of be opened up because that inserting in here can really cause the hip flexor to kind of latch itself in. So I'm starting on the medial side. I'm going to be working on the inside of that hip bone all the way down to the insertion of the tendons right at the corner of the groin. Then you're going to work your way back up. I'm going to place my elbow directly on top of the hip bone, and I'm going to be working my way through down towards her like gracilis, sartorius, and like adductor area, right in here. I'm going to work my way up. Then I come on the outside of that hip bone right on the corner, and I'm going to be really thoroughly working that TFL just to be in line with that groin. So at the end of that, her like pelvis, at the beginning of her groin, I'm going to work through that TFL to about right here. And this is where I want every single person to try both elbows. Because I'm going to do it with my right elbow, face to face, and then I'm going to flip over, and I'm going to do it with my left elbow, face to feet. The reason why, this is the only position on the body where it's really weird to be on the one side, leaning over, coming up, down on an angle. It's a lot for the body to be doing. So this is where, and we want to become ambidextrous anyways and be able to do all the work with both elbows. So try both here. It's going to be right elbow, left elbow, because everybody here is a righty. After I do that, you're going to do a little bit of essential oils, and you're just going to like kind of palpitate it and put it along the side. There's not too much of an effleurage massage in this area, just because it's a little bit more private. So you can land, just put the essential oils, but I was way more thorough with that effleurage massage when we were doing the hip and the iliotibial band. So far, so good? Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, now we're going to go through it. Thanks for joining, everybody.